This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. 5 years ago, deep in a bear market, a group of traditional finance experts founded BitGet, and they've been building ever since. Now, with 20 million users worldwide, BitGet is committed to helping users trade smarter by providing a secure one-stop crypto investment solution with copy trading, future trading, and spot trading. Your security is their priority, and BitGet has one of the largest protection funds in the industry, with US $300 million to cover potential trader losses from unforeseen events that are not due to misconduct from the user or platform. BitGet wants to inspire everyone to embrace Web3, so if you're new to crypto, learn more at the BitGet Academy with free blockchain courses, crypto guides, cryptocurrency trading strategies, and more. Or for the experienced investor, trade smarter with daily access to institutional-grade crypto market intelligence and trends analysis with BitGet Research. I've put links to BitGet Research and the BitGet Academy in the show notes, so get amongst it or simply go to bitget.com. Thank you to BitGet, and now it is on with the show. My guest today is Derek Yu. Derek is the CEO at Moonsong Labs, working on Moonbeam network, helping developers build cross-chain connected applications and some other fancy stuff as well. Welcome to the show, Derek.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
It is a pleasure. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show, Derek. It would be great if you could please introduce yourself. I'd love to hear a little bit of your personal and professional backstory and what you've been doing, and getting involved with Moonbeam, Moonsong, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm a bit older than some of the folks that I work with. I'm always kind of the old guy, I feel like. But I've been building just software for a long time. So far predating even Bitcoin and Web3. Probably about last 20-25 years building software and software companies of different kinds, mostly in the Web2 space. I spent like a good long chunk of time building up a Web2 company called Fuse, which was a B2B cloud communications company. Learned a lot like in that process of taking a company from two of us in a garage. At its peak, it was about a 700-person company. So lots of different chapters in that story. But since 2019, I've been working in the Web3 space, and I really, enjoy this space. Working on infrastructure protocols. This is definitely home for me now. One of the first things that we worked on and continue to work on is the project Moonbeam. So I'm sure we'll get more into that. But as you mentioned, that's a decentralized network, a developer-oriented protocol focused on cross-chain use cases.
Got it. Thank you, Derek. And sorry, listeners, that was my phone ringing, but I've turned it off. Tell us then a little bit about, let's start with Moonbeam Network, Derek. I guess high-level summary to begin. We can see that it's enabling developers to build apps that connect across chains to I guess enable new functionality, but explain a bit more about what the intention is there.
Yeah, why don't I frame it by explaining, what the idea was, kind of what the vision was that led us to starting Moonbeam, and that in fact informs a lot of the work that we do these days, and even some of the new initiatives that we're involved with. So, the thinking was even then and still is today that there's going to be many blockchains, and they're going to specialize over time to be good at certain use cases or functions. And in that world, the connectivity that between them becomes the critical capability, right? So if you can connect these different specialized blockchains together, then you can get this kind of whole is greater than some of its parts effect, where you can have scenarios that cut across different kinds of specialized chains. And so with that idea in mind, when we back in 2019 when we started, we looked around to say, okay, like where is it that we can create these chains or these specialized chains, and where is it that has kind of systems for connecting these chains together? And that's what led us down the path with Moonbeam to Substrate and to Polkadot, right? So Substrate is this development toolkit for building blockchains, which we use in the development of Moonbeam. And Polkadot is an environment that is designed to connect different substrate-based chains together so they can communicate with each other. And so that was the kind of the fertile ground to build out some of these ideas. And when we first started the project, we wanted to build something useful. And so one of the first things that we realized is we said, hey, like this substrate thing is very powerful for building chains, but really the tech stack that a lot of developers want to use, even back then, and it's even more so today, is the EVM, right? So the EVM is this kind of dominant technology stack, obviously from Ethereum mainnet, and now, it's kind of pervasive everywhere, right? All these L2s are using it. And so I think that was our insight at the time was, hey, this is going to be useful if we can create an Ethereum-like environment in Substrate, that will then be a useful component as part of this multi-chain ecosystem that we're participating in creating and helping create as Polkadot came to life. And that's still, to this day, I think one of the things that Moonbeam is probably best known for is for providing this Ethereum-like environment, even if it's within this this Polkadot context.
Right. And so what are the things that is taking place, I suppose, on Moonbeam is, of course, a reasonably rich looking DeFi ecosystem. Can talk to us a little bit, Derek, about the DeFi ecosystem on Moonbeam and how that is progressing?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that as you kind of create like one of these the software around one of these decentralized networks and it comes to life, different use cases emerge. And for smart contract platforms in general, I would just say that like DeFi is one of those use case areas, right? That where there's a natural product market fit, there's something that you can do on blockchains that you can't really do in other environments. So it wasn't surprising for us to see that DeFi was one of the kind of let's call it use case areas that got traction on Moonbeam. I would say to some degree it was also games. There are a number of games that are on Moonbeam as well. But DeFi was definitely something where there was early interest and a number of teams were deploying on Moonbeam. One of the key drivers, I would say, is that it was at a moment, back when Moonbeam was launching, that was kind of the first wave of cross-chain expansion that was happening, right? So you had a lot of DeFi protocols on Ethereum mainnet, and then they were looking to expand to all of these new ecosystems that were launching. And so one of the key drivers that we saw that was of interest to a lot of those teams was basically access to users and assets in these other ecosystems. So for Polkadot, there's the dot asset itself, there's all the users that are in and around Polkadot. So for them, I think Moonbeam became this very practical deployment location because they could take the existing smart contracts and other things that they developed, the software that they had, deploy it onto Moonbeam, but in doing so, get access to these like Polkadot native assets, DOT among others, as well as the users on Polkadot. So a number of DeFi protocols expanded in that way. We had, there was an early deployment from the team at Sushi, and then it's been followed now by many others. There's, Uniswap and Curve and many other DeFi protocols. Moonwell is an important protocol in the ecosystem that provides lending and borrowing.
Sometimes there's always a unique developer culture or community across some of these different chains and ecosystems. Derek, do you notice kind of anything different that you would describe about Moonbeam and Polkadot versus some of the other communities?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that the community, first of all, the community around Polkadot, right, and the community around Moonbeam, there is like a big amount of overlap there.
Sure.
There tend to be, I think the community there tends to be very kind of developer oriented and technical. So, Substrate as a technology for building blockchains is kind of inherently like technical, right? So it's Rust based. It's like, you're doing lower level kind of programming. So I think that attracts a certain kind of person that wants to really kind of has this kind of engineering background and wants to understand how things work and is, kind of jazzed by the idea of, no, I don't want a smart contract. I want to build like a whole blockchain, right? So that's kind of maybe something that's larger scope and requires lower level understanding of how things work. And so that's definitely one flavor I'd say of folks that are around the ecosystem. But the other one I would say, and you touched on it earlier, is around folks that are building cross-chain applications. So that is something that Moonbeam is like particularly well suited to, and has been, you know, there's specific features have been developed to make cross-chain development easy, and like, you know, we have, you know, some unique features there actually that help enable teams to develop cross-chain applications that allow them, kind of like the example I gave, allow them to get to users and assets that are on, you know, other chains more easily.
And just staying on DeFi, Derek, you know, how would you characterize, I suppose, the state of DeFi in general, but, you know, you can talk about the specifics more as it relates to Moonbeam as well. But, you know, as we slowly show signs, I suppose, of coming out of the crypto winter, any kind of metrics or anecdotes, I guess, you can share in terms of, you know, what you see happening on the networks and I guess, you know, the health of the ecosystem in general at the moment.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in general, I'd say that DeFi as a kind of a sector has been largely depressed in terms of, you know, interest and usage, particularly in the bear. Obviously, we're maybe heading into like slightly different times now, at least as far as I can see, you know, on Twitter, sentiment wise, and so forth. But, you know, I guess one of my thoughts is that, you know, a lot of the problems that like were around, you know, that from, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, you know, these like large centralized like players that, you know, kind of spectacularly went bust. You know, they were largely not like DeFi protocols, right? Yes, you can always have like a hack on a DeFi protocol, but, you know, it is the case that with these DeFi protocols, they have this like inherent like transparency built into them, right? People can look at like smart contracts and the source code for smart contracts. They can understand on chain like what's happening and like what, you know, what kind of debt protocols have, like who's, you know, what kind of positions there are. And so I do see it ultimately as, you know, something that is like very beneficial for finance. And like the, you know, the big problems that crypto had were largely players that, like, you know, were not DeFi protocols, where people were, you know, a lot of those things were behind closed doors and they turned out to be, you know, either misrepresented or somehow not managed properly. So that's
Yeah.
the irony is that like it kind of like has affected DeFi, but I think in some ways DeFi is kind of the answer to some of these problems that I see from the last cycle.
Yeah, that is very well said, and may yet prove to be the case. I guess it's like a similar story with NFTs, Derek. You know, we had the big boom, and I suppose when 2021, and then again, well, who to no one's surprise, I suppose, an NFT bear market to follow, which perhaps we are still in. But I can see there seems to be reasonably healthy looking NFT ecosystem on Moonbeam as well. Is that the case?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think obviously Moonbeam is not immune from different like larger market forces that you're describing.
Of course.
But, you know, there's always been, you know, a pretty strong grassroots community like in and around Moonbeam that I was describing before. And, you know, interestingly, what we're seeing, you know, lately is we are seeing more what I'd call kind of like real world use case adoption.
Right.
And so that's something that like I'm pretty interested in these days, where, you know, for example, on like you know, even on like the NFT side, you know, we do see like different kinds of like, you know, different, you know, it could be a chain or it could be different kinds of like real world businesses that are now trying to adopt blockchain technology, put like, you know, it could be like customer loyalty, like programs, other kinds of like programs or services, like, you know, on chain. And so that's, you know, that's an interesting driver for me, right? That means that people are figuring out like how to use this new technology that, you know, allows them to do something they couldn't do before. And these are, you know, these are like real businesses, not like Web3 native businesses.
Yes, indeed. I mean, speaking of real world adoption, then what do you think are the key things that need to happen, or what can you see happening? What perhaps could happen that will help usher in that next wave of adoption for the next cycle? Do you think, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, this definitely these like enterprise and real world businesses like figuring out how to use Web3 technology. That's one. But I would say that, I mean, my big answer on this point is always around like the user experience, right? That, you know, I came from this, you know, 25 year background building, you know, Web2 software. And, you know, I think the user experiences that like that Web2 companies typically offer are still like quite a bit superior to what you see in Web3. And I still think there's a pretty big gap. And even when I explain to some Web3 teams, I just describe even the kinds of techniques that were used. And this is, I'm even getting dated now, or this was from many years ago now. There was I look at my product team, maybe a third of the team was devoted to user experience in one way, shape, or form. There would be a design team, right? There'd be people doing like user research and studies, right? And like figuring out like, what is it? Where are the friction points? What can we do to like improve the product to like, not have it be frustrating to use? There tends to be way less investment in Web3 products and protocols on this point. So that's a big hindrance, right? I mean, that's a big hindrance. I mean, you look even at like onboarding experience for most applications, it might assume that you already have, MetaMask, a seed phrase and, gas like in your account. And, those are safe assumptions for a power user, but for a brand new user, there's a lot of steps that you need to do to get to a point where you even have that starting point. And you're going to lose a lot of people if if they're going to have to figure all those things out on their own before even using your application. And so, even some of the things I've been looking at recently, there's some interesting functionality that the team over at SUI have put together to allow users to onboard like with their OAuth credentials, so with like their Google account, kind of like you do in the Web2 world. But it would actually kind of create this wallet for you, and you'd be able to sign transactions using your Google account. It's not the most, I guess I'd call it like the Web3 kind of principled people that may not be their favorite thing, but like there definitely is an element of practicality where if you can have these streamlined user flows, that's the way that you can really onboard like large numbers of users, in like a much more streamlined and kind of efficient way.
Got it. We said at the beginning of the show, Derek, I guess there's a differentiation, obviously, between Moonsong Labs and Moonbeam, the network. So, yeah, just love to understand a little bit about Moonsong Labs, and potentially other projects that you're overseeing there. How does that work?
Yeah, so the way to think of it is this: so Moonsong Labs, like we're a software engineering company, right? So we basically specialize in software engineering for Web3 protocols, and like the main project that we're well known for is Moonbeam, right? So like the actual software that makes for the node software that's running like on Moonbeam nodes or like the network, that's created like we're one of the primary contributors to that software protocol. And so that's this, we're kind of pretty specialized in the sense that there's engineers that have this kind of expertise around creating decentralized software protocols. Moonbeam is a project that we've been working on for some time as one of the main contributors. But there are, as you mentioned, also some other projects that we're starting to work on. There's another project called Pansy, which we can talk about, which is I think highly complementary to Moonbeam. There's another one called Glacis. There's a decentralized storage project called Storage Hub that we're working on. So there's a number of different, I'd call them all like infrastructure protocols that we're working on, but they tie together, into a bit of a larger vision that we have around, what the developer experience should be like for Web3 development, in the future.
Got it. And all right. Well, as we finish up this part of the podcast, Derek, just make the case for, I suppose, who's the target audience really for Moonbeam Network? I guess it's developers across various decentralized apps. Just make the case for why they should look at building and deploying on Moonbeam, and what should they do? Where should they go to start to learn more and look to get involved?
Yeah, so just answering the second part first, we do pride ourselves in having a really excellent like developer documentation site and a number of support resources, like the DevRel kind of resources around Moonbeam are really like best in class. And so, for example, docs.moonbeam.network is a great starting point if you're a developer to learn about Moonbeam. What kinds of use cases do we target, and where are we a great fit? I would say that in this cross-chain area, so developers these days, it used to be that you would pick a chain, right? You say, okay, I'm going to build something. Let me pick a chain. I might pick Ethereum. I might pick Arbitrum. I might pick Avalanche. I'm going to pick a chain and deploy there. Those days, I would say, are largely gone. I mean, you can't just pick, if you pick just one chain, the market is quite limited by the users and assets and other things that are on that one chain. So almost everyone has to have some strategy these days for building something cross-chain, right? So building something that's going to be able to reach users and assets and services on like whatever blockchain people happen to be on. And so that's really what we're trying to create like the best environment for is, where is the best place to build this kind of an application that can reach users regardless of what chain they're on. So we see, things like a hub and spoke architecture, something that we see quite often these days, where the hub of the application might be in Moonbeam, but then it has spokes reaching out to all sorts of different locations, right? Arbitrum, Optimism, ZK Sync, and like other destinations. And so that's like, I would say that kind of the main developer we're looking to appeal to these days, where we see a lot of traction. And Moonbeam has this full EVM compatible environment, all the tools that people are used to, things like Etherscan, Chainlink, all of the tools that one expects on like a fully supported like EVM platform. So that's I would say the sweet spot for Moonbeam.
Absolutely. And of course, those links are in the show notes, listeners. But yeah, simply moonsonglabs.com and of course, moonbeam.network. I think, Derek, we go to a very quick break and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll run you through the very famous Crypto Conversation Hot Take round. Back in 1 second.
Oh, this is a full-time job. Crypto markets really are 24/7. Oh, Elon's tweeted again about Dogecoin. I don't have the time to research the technical indicators of Dogecoin. What are you doing?
I just use CopyTrader on BitGet. One click and I'm copying the trades from an experienced crypto trader. Then it just gives me all the time in the world to watch my favorite Netflix shows and do all my favorite activities.
I've been up for 24 hours, I've had 16 cups of coffee, 8 energy drinks, and that bird noise is getting on my last nerve.
I think you need to go to bed.
Yeah, I need to go to bed.
Hands off, gains up. Start copy trading on BitGet.
All right, we are back and we're with Derek Yu, of course, working from Moonsong Labs, across the Moonbeam network. Derek, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, Derek. Just going to run some questions at you. Just want kind of hot take style answers, but yeah, just answer them honestly. All good. Question one for you, bit of a funny one, but where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Deeply on the multi-chain opportunist spectrum. I think that there's going to be like ultimately millions of blockchains, and just like there are millions of servers these days, and when you use apps, you won't even realize you're using hundreds of them. Maybe that's what I predict for the future.
Yes, very well said. Okay, well, what would you say then, Derek, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
I would say that while there's going to be those million blockchains, there's going to be far fewer tech stacks that developers use to build them. And the one of the key bets we've made, for example, is on the EVM. I think the EVM is like here to stay. It has all these warts, and people complain about its performance and all these things, but it's the de facto standard, and it's very, very difficult to make an alternate standard that has the same amount of traction.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Derek, Bill Gates famously said we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So, with that in mind, anything you like, Web3, DeFi, the Moonbeam network, what does it look like in 10 years' time?
Yeah, I think that it's just riffing on my last point, there probably is tech stack consolidation. And a lot of chains that some majority of the chains that are out there are being powered by, let's call it 1 to 2 different technology stacks. I think, and it's likely that they're going to be EVM based. I believe. The challenge is it's not clear which ones. So I see us in the shorter term, let's say in the 2 to 3 year time frame. There's all these competing people now that are building their own tech stacks, or even all the L2s, like Arbitrum, Optimism, ZK Sync, Starkware. They're all and Polygon. They all have their own tech stack for building chains. And so I think in this kind of next 2 to 3 year period, we're going to see like multiple islands of interoperable chains, but kind of simultaneously, right? It won't be clear like, you know, which one is going to get like the critical mass and kind of win out over the other ones. So I see this in this kind of like kind of a pluralistic kind of environment for the next like several years, even if they all are mostly EVM based.
Yes, indeed. Well, look, Derek, it has been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show and spending some time with us. Again, just shout out your Twitter profile if you have one, or Moonbeams, and again, tell people where they should go to learn more on the Moonbeam network.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, just for me personally, my Twitter, that's just at Derek Yu, DerekYoo. But the best place to learn about Moonbeam is definitely the website. So that's just moonbeam.network.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. All the best, and bye for now. All right, there you go. That was Derek Yu from Moonbeam Network and Moonsong Labs. Thank you to Derek and the team. And yeah, we reached the end of another episode. Thank you for listening, folks. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave Yukon. See ya.